everyone. We were on recess. Council is now back in session. Tony, would you please call the roll?
Jimenez, Cohen, Ortiz,
Present.
Davis. Here. Dwan.
Here.
Candelas.
Here.
Foley. Casey.
Here.
Kamei. Here. Mahan.
Here.
You have a quorum.
Great. Thank you. Do we have a staff presentation? I'm sure it's in my notes here. Chris, are you doing a presentation? Great.
10.2, otherwise known as the El Paseo project. I think we all know where it's located on Saratoga Avenue and Quito. The underlying general plan is a mixture of neighborhood, community, commercial, and regional commercial. This site is obviously, there's been an extensive amount of work that's previously gone on here. Back in June of 2022, the City Council approved a planned development zoning on the site. And then there was also a planned development permit associated with that to construct 4 mixed-use buildings, including 994 residential units, 150 of which were affordable, and then 165,000 square feet of commercial space, plus a 1.1 acre park. And we approved a planned development permit amendment in November of last year to reduce the height of building 3 from an 11-story mixed-use building to a 1-story, almost 60,000 square foot building, which is the Whole Foods on the site. The proposed amendment that we have before you tonight is, sorry, I'm on the wrong slide. No, that's the right one. Is a vesting tentative map to reconfigure 6 lots into 4 lots and allow up to 20 commercial condominiums on the site. There's a request to amend the Affordable Housing Compliance Plan, and because that was approved through the City Council, that has to come back through the same hearing body, as well as modifications to Buildings 1, 2, and 4. Buildings 1 and 2 will include 772 multifamily residential units, 39 of which will be affordable, as well as 31,500 square feet of commercial space. Building 4 is a 7-story, 230,000 square foot senior care facility that will accommodate 263 beds. And then finally, we will include the implementation of a TDM plan under the new parking ordinance. So as with all, I'm going the wrong way, I apologize. As with all development projects, it was reviewed for consistency with the general plan, the municipal code under Title V for housing, the subdivision code, as well as the zoning ordinance in Title 20. We reviewed it against the citywide design standards and guidelines, as well as City Council Policy 6-30 for public outreach and the California Environmental Quality Act. For the environmental review, an initial study and supporting addendum to the project EIR was completed. No new or more significant impacts beyond those identified in the certified final EIR have been identified. So with that, staff is recommending the adoption of a resolution approving the addendum to the project, to the project final EIR, a resolution approving, subject to conditions, a vesting tentative map to reconfigure the 6 lots into 4, as well as the up to 20 commercial condominiums, and a resolution approving, subject to conditions, a planned development permit to amend the Affordable Housing Compliance Plan, as well as those changes already noted in the presentation. And with that, staff is available for questions.
Great. Thank you, Chris. Appreciate all the work staff has done. Appreciate the applicant coming forward with these changes and being committed to the project. We're going to give the applicant 5 minutes now to present to the council.
Good evening, Mayor Mahan, members of the council. My name is Eric Schoenauer, representing Sandhill Properties. Are you okay? I thought you couldn't hear me. Okay, great. Representing Sandhill Property. And we first want to thank staff for all of their time and effort to review the project, and Vice Mayor Kamei and her staff for all their efforts to take another look at the project. We first conceived of this project in 2019 and submitted our preliminary review application with the city for a signature project in 2019. A lot has happened since then. We've had a global pandemic. We had a pandemic-induced recession. We had record inflation, highest inflation in 40 years, and we had the capital markets and real estate development totally frozen. And for all of those reasons, we've had to make modifications to our development plans so that they're feasible to build. Mixed into my points are some images that we want to share with you. So this is looking at the new mixed-use development in the Whole Foods from the parking lot of the existing REI. And this image here is a view of the site from Quito Road. So on the right in the foreground is the new publicly accessible, privately owned open space park, and then the new residential and retail buildings within the development. A key change to the development program is the change in our below market rate program, affordable program. Previously, we had tried to make all of the units on site, but that has proven a financial burden on our plan. So now we will be providing 39 affordable units within the apartment towers, and then paying the balance, $13 million approximately, in lieu fee to the city to commit to another off-site project. Also in this diagram, you see our buildings 1 and 2, mixed-use buildings. You see the park in the bottom left, and you also at the bottom of the page see the existing row of green trees and the berm. That is remaining. That was an important thing to the adjacent single-family homeowners, and we're preserving and enhancing that berm for a good screening between our development and the single-family homes. A cornerstone of the plan is a retail main street with shopping and dining along a main street configuration. This is looking at the entrance to that main street, with Whole Foods being the anchor store for the development. This is another image looking down the main street. There's a total of over 80,000 square feet of ground floor retail space. We anticipate a lot of it will be restaurant outdoor dining space, but also the 40,000 square foot Whole Foods. Another cornerstone of the plan is all of the publicly accessible outdoor space. So we have 3.5 acres total, a 1.1 acre park, which is the square in the bottom left of this diagram, and then we have 2.4 acres combined of pedestrian paseos, urban plazas, and outdoor dining along the main street. This just shows you how the footprints of our building changed from the original plan. So the outlined in red is the old footprint, and you can see we've been able to expand the park in this new plan to give more public space, and we straightened out the paseo. But the concept is substantially the same. And as I mentioned before, we'll preserve and enhance the berm at the bottom of the page. Another commitment to the neighborhood was to keep our buildings outside the 45-degree daylight plane, which is the red line. So on the left are single-family homes, and you can see the berm, and then our buildings completely out of the red line, which is a good planning standard for interfacing taller buildings with single-family homes. Here's another look of that setback from the red line. We are adding senior assisted living to the plan. So Sunrise Senior Living, which is an expert firm on assisted living, will be providing this new building at the corner of Quito and Saratoga. And lastly, we're retaining the commitments that we made in terms of we're conforming to the zoning approved by council, the environmental impact report, we have the park, we're protecting the berm, we're honoring the setbacks, and $10 million of pedestrian and bike improvements. With that,
Thank you. Appreciate the applicant's presentation. Tony, do we have public comment?
I have no cards.
I think you may have one card coming in
I do.
from a former council member
I'll just call the name,
who's
Chappie
getting
Jones.
a bear hug from the applicant. Okay. Chappie, come on down.
Yeah, I know your name. Chappie, followed by Jake Wild.
All right. Welcome back.
Greetings, everyone. Greetings, Mayor, Vice Mayor, City Council, City Manager, City Attorney, City staff. I know, and I just burned 30 seconds. And also the City Hall security. I probably left out a couple of people, but I've come here today to express my profound disappointment that we weren't able to deliver the 151 affordable housing units in District 1. It was a long and painful multi-year process to get El Paseo to the point where I could support it. It was the linchpin of my support. It was the affordable housing. I understand that market conditions have changed and housing production has come to a stop. I also realize that this project will have 5% affordable housing. I was even given the same advice that I give to other people. 5% of something is better than 100% of nothing. I hate it when people use my own advice against me. That being said, if this item is approved tonight, I would like to see a few things happen on a portion of the site that is currently being redeveloped, or not being redeveloped. That the developer work with the housing department, the community, and other affordable housing developers. And there are developers out there who are doing some very innovative building strategies on a path forward to building more affordable housing on site. Since D1 is still one of the most park-deficient districts in the city, it used to be the most park-deficient. I don't know if anybody else caught up with us. The most park-deficient district in the city. The new residents will require additional park space above and beyond what is currently being proposed. That the developer work with the city and community on a path forward to expand on-site park space.
That's your time.
All right. Got to get a lot out quickly. But thank you very much, everybody, for your time and attention. Thank you.
Thanks, Chappie. You know how to reach us. Yeah.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council. My name is Jake Wild. I'm with Catalyze SV, and I'm here tonight on behalf of our members to state our support for this incarnation of the project and the previous incarnation and the one before that. And a lot of time has passed since we first got involved with this project. And I think the biggest push from our members here on this is we would just like to see housing built, period. There's been a lot said today about housing metrics, numbers, 0 new starts, only, 2,600 units permitted this year alone. We'd like to see housing get going, so please support and approve this amendment for the project. Thank you.
I have no other cards.
Great. Thank you to both of our public speakers. Let's come back to the council. We're going to, of course, start with Vice Mayor. It's in her district. Vice Mayor.
Thank you so much. Thank you for all the speakers that came. And yes, Chappie, 100% of nothing is 0. So it's something that I keep in my mind, and certainly we're trying to move away from that. I want to thank the applicant as well as staff. There's been a lot of work that has been done on this. Yes, we want bigger, better, nicer park. I think that working with the developers has been something that they have heard, not just from me, not just from you, Chappie, but from the community as well, because we are park deficient. But I think that there's a pathway forward to be able to get something that's really nice. I certainly know that in this era of not having any housing starts is really, really critical. I mean, I know that at one point the affordable housing had been set at 0. And I'm delighted that working with the housing department and our director, we're able to get to the 39 that you're going to have. It's going to be intermixed, which I think it's the best way to be able to create affordable housing mix. And I think it's going to be a good project. You have heard us, and I really think that it is a way of being able to see some shovels in the ground, and I look forward to that. And with that, I'd like to move staff's recommendation.
Great. Thank you, Vice Mayor. Appreciate your work with the applicant in this iteration of the project, which I hope is the one that gets built. We'll go to Councilmember Dewan.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, staff, for putting this whole plan together, and thank you to Chappie Jones for working on it for many years ago. Even though we didn't meet the original plan, but we still have that 5% affordable housing. And what really exciting for me is that there will be 200 plus senior assisted living. Now, those seniors could be moving out of their home, which create, possible space for new family to move into. I want to say thank you to Eric Sullivan for continued collaboration and communication with my office. And I want to also thank you to Eric Schoenauer for taking phone calls from my staff, offline to be able to get the clear communication and information we needed. And I will be supporting this project as well. Thank you.
Great. Thanks, Councilmember. Councilmember Foley?
Thank you. Thank you for the staff presentation and the presentation from the applicant. And, when the former vice mayor speaks, you have to listen. I respect Chappie tremendously, and I share his concerns about the reduction in on-site affordable housing. We just spent hours talking about what's going on in the market and why 0 properties are being developed in the last 14 months and beyond. And so I'm wondering if you could give us a little more background on the economic conditions that have resulted in this modification to the plan.
Are you directing that to city
you,
staff
Eric.
or the applicant?
How about
Eric?
the applicant? Yes,
Okay.
this is to the applicant. Thank you.
As I mentioned during the presentation, the impacts of the interest rates and the capital market seizing up is something that is starting to ease, as we know, right? The Fed's lowering interest rates. It takes a long time for that to hit the marketplace when it comes to real estate development. But we think the trend's in the right direction, and with these changes, it shifts the value proposition. Subsidizing the affordable housing units within the development is a cost to the project. So not building all of those units helps the pro forma. In addition, we're bringing what I'll call a high value land use, and that's the senior assisted living. There's strong demand for senior assisted living, and there's also financing available for that real estate asset type because it has good fundamentals in economics. The other thing is that we have removed the office space because that was a clear anchor on the pro forma for this development, and we've replaced that with the assisted living. Assisted living takes up adds commercial and jobs, over 100 jobs in the assisted living. It also is housing for seniors. So with all of those changes, we feel very confident that we can execute. And we, in fact, are well into the building permit review for Building 3, which is the first phase with Whole Foods. And we are drafting the construction drawings for Buildings 1, 2, and 4, which are the 2 housing towers and the assisted living right now. So, at risk, because if you didn't approve this, then we would have wasted our time and money, but we feel very bullish. But, we will know more in 2025 and hope that Building 3 can get started by summer of next year.
Oh, okay, that was going to be my next
Yes.
question, when you might be starting some of
That's
the?
the goal, is for
Okay.
Building 3, which is the Whole Foods.
Right.
Because we have a contract with Whole Foods to
Right.
deliver a store in a certain amount of time. And so we're trying to work with them and honor that contract, because that is a key anchor to making this whole project work.
Okay, thank you. I am pleased to see that the affordable housing units are distributed throughout the project. I think that's a benefit for integrating the affordable housing tenants in with the rest of the community. I think that's really important. The separate tower always concerned me, having the separate location. I didn't vote on that situation, I wasn't around, but I appreciate the thought that went into this current plan and that you're able to move forward. I want to thank you, Eric. I want to thank the Vice Mayor for her leadership on this. I know it's difficult dealing with a project where the community weighed in so heavily with your predecessor, and we've received a lot of emails too from some of them in support of it. They too would like to see more housing, affordable housing units on site, but I also understand the economic conditions and where we are today, and I think 5% is better, as you said, than 0%. And getting El Paseo rebuilt will be a wonderful jewel for the District 1 community. So I'm happy to support. Thank you.
Great. Thanks, Councilmember Foley. Let's go over to Councilmember Candelas.
No, thank you, Mayor. I wasn't planning on speaking, but I did want to offer an opportunity for Vice Mayor Jones to finish his comments. If you wanted to, I'd love to be able to give you some of my time to be able to hear and finish your thoughts completely. Of course.
Could you maybe just ask him a question, just to stick with our protocol?
Vice Mayor Jones, would you mind sharing what you have written on your piece of paper?
Thank you.
Thank you for that question, Council Member. And actually,
Let me know if you have any follow-up questions for him.
My light is still on, so maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You got 10 minutes, Vice Mayor.
All right. Well, actually, the third point that I wanted to make actually was one of the most important points, and that was finally whatever is agreed upon and approved by council be contractually rock solid. You know, I want to emphasize rock solid. So that when market conditions change again, and we all know they will, the affordable housing project will move forward. That was my final point. Thank you, Councilmember.
Oh, no, thank you, Vice Mayor, and I appreciate you bringing that up, because, you know, a lot of times, depending on where we are with our terms, the time we spend negotiating in good faith with applicants and people who want projects, we spend a lot of time and energy figuring out deals that go hopefully in congruency with the opinion of our residents, but sometimes it goes counter to that. Mm-hmm. And so, you know, I know the time it took to be able to negotiate this deal, and I'm sure it was made in good faith. However, you know, I do have some concerns that, you know, what's to say something in my district that I negotiate in good faith with another applicant, and this question is more so for staff. And, you know, the deals that we make on behalf of our residents, how do we make sure that, you know, we get that, and they, you know, applicants just don't wait us out and come back to us when conditions change? So I'd love to hear from staff to hear your perspective on, I mean, that's part of why we bring action items and conditions of approval forward.
Yeah, thanks, Council Member. There's a number of different sort of pieces that fit into that. Obviously, many of what we would consider conditions of approval, or the standards that are tied to the project, are sort of based in the requirements that either come through the Muni Code or the SEQRA, and those things tend to be preserved. But where the sort of the pinch point arrives is when we tend to do these larger projects through a plan development rezoning, and we tend to bake a lot into a very site-specific entitlement. And that's the intent, right, is that we ensure that either the resolution that's passed or the zoning itself really lays out those conditions and memorializes them. With the IHO in particular, there was language that was included when we created the ordinance to say, and hence part of the reason why we're back here with the amendment is to say that if the council makes a decision based on this set of criteria, that you have to come back through the city council. Now, that's not to say a subsequent city council couldn't make a different decision.
Correct.
I think what we tend to see, again, large projects in particular, if you think that our general entitlements last anywhere from 4 to 6 years, you've got a building permit and a construction process. I mean, for a project of this size, the average span is always going to be
Right.
10 years and above. So it is a constant moving target. It's something that we're certainly aware of, and we try and use this process back through the hearing body to at least daylight some of those issues.
Perfect. No, thank you, Chris, and I appreciate, and again, Vice Mayor, thank you for your comments, and especially the note of relaying it to us as representatives and leaders in the city to make sure that whatever we do is as ironclad as it can be. But I would hope that we do hopefully get shovels in the ground, and I mean earlier the growth incentive that we helped pass, and I want to say this project was on there, that we can actually see some housing, any kind of housing built and any kind of development built. But no, thank you for answering that question, and thank you for your time.
Thank you, Councilmember.
Thanks, Councilmember. I will note, while this was a project with an entitlement, in this case, as I know the Vice Mayor made very clear, the applicant is actually following through with committing the in lieu fees to the affordable housing pot for another affordable housing project. So they're actually exempt from what we passed earlier this evening, which is great that this project can still go forward even with those in lieu fees going into our affordable housing fund. Let me turn to Councilmember Cohen.
Thank you. I'll start actually following up on that question. Are they taking advantage of any of the elements of the previous incentive that we just approved?
There is discussion around how in the processing of the incentives, what is in and out, and the city attorney and I will just kind of clarify some of those positions to ensure that there is consistent of application across what projects are in. We know the in lieu fees are going into the pot for sure. And I don't know if Kevin wanted to provide any additional thoughts on this issue or whether we just need further clarification on that process.
Kevin Fisher from the City Attorney's Office. I think we would need to discuss that a little more. The main thing we were looking at is when you pass the program, it has to be uniformly available to all the applicants, which it was in order to get the exemption or to not be a subsidy. So I think we need to have some further discussions with staff about that issue, though.
And Kevin, the way, as I understand it, or staff may want to speak to this, the way that we kept it uniform was there was a clause you may have noticed in there around the inclusionary requirement specifically that said that the new term of 5% on site was applicable unless a higher threshold had been previously negotiated for the project.
Right, no, I understand the
case
inclusionary
here.
portion. There's the property tax portion, and I was curious about that element of it.
The construction tax or the property tax?
Oh, no, I'm sorry, the construction tax portion.
Yeah.
And whether this project was participating in that portion as well.
Yeah, and that is what Kevin and I will
That you'll be
work out and
discussing.
follow up.
So we don't have an answer to that at this point.
Yes, so.
Presumably, the timeline for building permit is past the end of 2025, so we wouldn't be at the 50% level regardless of the.
Correct, and this is where we have to work in working with the developer. We have, again, particularly for this project, a lot of their numbers, so we know what the ratios are, feasibility, and moving the project forward, and so the city attorney and I will work this out and move forward.
Okay. And I appreciate Vice Mayor coming, giving his perspective. I know you go through a lot to get community buy-in, and you put your career at risk, as we all do when we have these kind of projects. So I understand the angst when these things change. Obviously, the strength of that requirement is only as good as what the council does going forward. The council is always able to make changes to anything that happens, whether it's a policy or anything else we approve. So nothing is ever permanent. But having said that, I wanted to ask Eric one more question. I made this comment during the incentive before about us getting all rah-rah when we approve a project, and then the project doesn't happen, and then we're back talking about it again. And this is an example of a project that we pass with excitement and we have to make changes to. You expressed optimism that the project can move forward at this point in this particular configuration, but obviously you're only talking about starting construction in 2025 on the Whole Foods and not on any of the housing. How confident, what is the confidence level that this unlocks the project moving forward and that at least some of the residential build, the 1, 2, and 4 elements are going to move forward?
Well, first of all, you can't work in the development business unless you're an optimist.
Well,
I can tell you that. But in any case, I only know what Steve Lynch, who's sitting behind me, tells me, and that is that we feel confident that with these changes to the project, it can move forward. But it does take time. So these are high rises. So these are not the building 1 and 2, the apartment and ground floor retail. These are high-rise buildings. They're not 5 stories of wood over podium like you see in most of your districts. So the time it takes to do the construction drawings for that, have the building department review all of that, it just takes time. So can we get that done in all of 2025? We think it's going to be tight, but if we roll into early 2026, that's what it is.
Yeah, my concern isn't necessarily that it'll take the time. The time that it takes, it should take as long as it needs to be a robust project. But I know some of us who will be here for another 4 years or more just would hope we won't be back in this conversation again on this property with additional concessions to make it pencil out.
It costs millions of dollars to produce construction drawings for a project of this scale. So if we didn't have some amount of optimism that we were actually going to move to construction, the investors would not have cleared us to invest in those drawings. Right. I mean, that's all I can really say in terms of optimism.
And I appreciate that. And part of my question may be partly rhetorical. It's not even meant to say, I mean, you can't commit to anything. Nobody can ever be 100% sure. Yeah. I'm just expressing maybe a feeling that we don't want to this shouldn't be an ongoing process where there's changes over and over again. And maybe it's not meant to be, and it's not even meant as a criticism of anything you're doing, but just a feeling that I have that, making this adjustment once as we go through the project makes sense. We just don't want to, I don't think we want to.
Neither do we.
And I know you don't too.
Steve wants to add something.
Steve Lynch, Sand Hill Property Company. I apologize for my voice. To tag on to that, we have been just vigorously fighting to get this project to a point where we know it is financially stable. We would not have spent $1 million in this last year on consultants' costs going through the city. We have an addendum to the EIR in front of you. We have a modified affordable housing agreement. This is the full boat process to get back to this point right now. And we know we are one of the only projects that is coming back in front of you for reapproval. So that's our commitment. You can see this in the money we've spent and the time we've spent. We could have spent my time on other projects throughout the Bay Area. That's certainly it, but it's not. We want this project built, and we're committed to do that. And as dire as 2024 was, and as 2025 is not looking as positive, it also pushed this project in a good spot to be one of the few multifamily projects coming out of the ground and probably opening in 26 and 27. So it does put us in a good position as well. So again, we would not be here. I would not be here right now if we weren't committed to getting this project moving.
Right.
So
thank you.
Hopefully you can see that. Yep.
Right.
Great. Thanks for those questions, council member. All right, I don't see any other hands. Motion on the floor. Once again, I want to thank the applicant for working closely with city staff, vice mayor and her staff, my staff, and coordinate with the council members to get to this point. I'm really hopeful that we're going to be able to move this project forward now, and appreciate colleague support for it. Let's vote.
Oh, just go ahead and verbal vote because we moved you. I think that was the issue. Pam, I have you as no vote, so can you orally vote?
Just an oral vote. Not having voted, so just verbal
right,
vote.
not having voted. Yeah. Is everybody aye? Just let's everybody.
Aye. Any opposed?
Unanimous.
Okay, we're having some technical difficulties.
Yeah, our
that was
system's
unanimous,
a little wonky
unless
today.
anybody wants to disagree. Okay, that was a unanimous vote. Congratulations. Thank you, staff. We're now on to open forum.
Mark
Up to-
Trout.
I'm sorry?
Mark Trout. That's the only card.
Okay. Mark Trout, come on down.
Guys, don't leave. You're going to want to hear this. It's going to be powerful. Really big. All right, before I begin, I'd just like to ask and take a survey. How many of you heard the KFAX talk show a week ago Monday? Could we see a show of hands on that? Okay, I don't see any hands, but you can get the podcast. And Mike called in, was talking about a documentary that aired on the StuPeters.com station recently. It's called Occupied. And everybody here should listen to this documentary. Now, I went to Our Lady of Mount Carmel, and maybe I forgot that they taught me this there, but I know Karl Marx started communism, but I don't remember Karl's real name. He was a Jewish guy, Moses Mordecai Levy. And communism certainly was started by Jews. It really was. And this documentary is all about it. And, you know,
I'm struggling to understand what this has to do with city business.
well, it has to do with God, and it has to do with city business, because everybody put their hand on their heart and said, you know, we're one nation under God in the Pledge of Allegiance. So, you know, communism is against God, so it has to do with city business, Matt. So now I had to take 20 seconds of my time to explain myself, but, you know, I'm supposed to have this time to talk with you, and it's very important. You know, I'm not one to say that there's no such thing as Islamic terrorism. I'm actually a Muslim scholar. I've read the Quran twice all the way through. But there's also something called Israeli terrorism. And Benjamin Netanyahu actually wrote a book and said he did.
Sir, that's foreign policy. What does that have to do with city business?
I already answered that. Say, no, it's free speech, see? It's free speech. I'm supposed to have free speech. And it's not right. But watch the documentary, Truth is Truth. And Benjamin Netanyahu needs to get saved. And the Jews.
All right, everyone, we're adjourned. Thank you for your time.